Welcome everyone. I'm Laura Smits. I'm a member of the Norwalk League and also a member of the State Connecticut League Board. Welcome everyone to League of Women Voters of Norwalk's annual legislative event. Thank you legislators and members of the audience for joining us this evening. This event is held annually as we host our legislative delegation to talk about the session, which started, yesterday? And give citizens a chance to ask questions on issues of concern to them. As many of you know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. The League also seeks to influence public policy through education and advocacy. Membership is open to anyone. You can find more information on the League of Women Voters on our website, as well as there's a table in the back of the room with information. Thank you. Let's go over some ground rules for this evening. We ask the audience maintain respect and decorum. Please keep your comments to yourself. If there are any outbursts, I will stop and ask for quiet. And if it continues, you may be asked to leave, or I may have to stop the event. So let's try to keep it civil. That would be terrific. We are here to listen to each other, and even if you don't agree with what others have to say, let's just tone it down a notch and try to bring in 2025 as a better place than we were not too long ago. Okay, here's the format. Each legislator will be given a minute and a half to introduce themselves and tell us the area of Norwalk they represent. Please include the committees you are on and one or two key goals for the session. That's a lot to squeeze into a minute and a half, so good luck. After the introductions, we'll open it up to questions from the audience. I already have some here, and ushers are handing out cards at the door. If you need one, raise your hand and one will be given to you. These questions should be about state level issues, not local ones like about potholes on your road. We will try to get to as many questions as possible and as many different topics as possible. The screeners may combine questions of the same topic. Please make sure that you submit a question, not a statement. Legislator will have a minute and a half to answer those questions. I'll alternate who goes first for each question, and after the initial answer, I'll give the rest of you a chance to answer the question for a minute each. You're welcome to pass. If there's nothing more to be said, please feel free to pass so we can move along and get more questions. Both the question screeners and I have a list of committees that you serve on, so if there's a question that's specific to you, I will try to hand it to you first. Timers for this evening are sitting in the front row. Deb, are you there? One alone timer, so let's be patient. Okay, so when you get, there'll be a 30-second sign, a stop sign when you get to a minute and a half, and a minute and 30 seconds, and stop. What? Well, let's try. Let's start formally. We don't want to get out of control. We'll end at 8 with 1 minute last words from each of you. Okay, so away we go. Who would like to start? I have this reverse alpha order to make it fair to everyone. So the first person would be Mr. Roberts. Would you like to give your...
Let's do it. Good evening, everyone. Kadeem Roberts from Norwalk, Connecticut, born and raised. One of the youngest, vibrant people up there at the Capitol level right now. Walking through those rooms. But most importantly, for me, just being born and raised here, I kind of made Norwalk my everything. I am that public servant at the Capitol. I am on the Housing Committee, where I serve as the Vice Chair of Housing in the state of Connecticut. I am on the Judiciary Committee as well, and of course the Education Committee. I have a degree in elementary education and a master's in local and state government. For me, altogether, what are the priorities? Numerous priorities, of course. We're talking about housing, we're talking about affordability. When we get to that, we're talking about just cause. It's a big main topic right now for our priority bills. We're talking about judiciary, we're talking about raising the age of arrest for people from 10 years old to 14. For me, we're talking about education. We're talking about fully funding our education system for the kids out there in the state and city and all. That's that.
Thank you.
That was tough.
That was tough. Very vibrant.
Thank you, Ms. Morrow.
Good evening. I am Tracy Mara. I live in Darien. I represent 141st, which is most of Rowayton and Darien. I'm happy to be here tonight. I serve on the Public Health and Transportation Committees, and I am now ranking on Energy. So I am originally from Kentucky, and my background is pharmacy. So if we talk about some of the issues that we have in front of us, obviously, and it was the start of the governor's address was energy, 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 probably for the first 5 minutes of his address to the General Assembly. And the other area that I'm heavily involved in is a prescription drug task force. I was asked to co-chair a prescription drug task force. We've been meeting regularly talking about affordability and access to prescription drugs. We'll have a series of 12 meetings. We've divided them up into various subjects of pharmacy benefit managers, shortages, pharmacy innovation, and hopefully we will have some recommendations. Not everything we can do on the state level. Many times it comes to federal issues, but we hope to put something forward to help with that as well. And I'm happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Evening, everybody. Dominic Johnson, and I see many constituents here. I'm proud to represent our 143rd district here in Norwalk, where I'm the Cranberry resident, not too far down the road from our senator. And I'm a proud Norwalker by choice and have lived here for over a decade, and am immensely proud to represent the northeast part of Norwalk and some north central Norwalk down to 95 and everything where we are right here into the middle of the road there. So part of the district encompasses Westport. We were just there on Monday with Westporters there. I have about 10% of the town west of the river. I am now proud to say that I have been appointed the screening chair, and I'm a deputy majority leader for this term, and that means that I'm going to be really involved in the legislative process, especially when things get to the House floor. I will be on Judiciary again. Really happy Kadeem and I will be there for Norwalk, as well as the Environment Committee, which was new, as well as Government Administration and Elections Committee. Those are two new ones for me. Some key goals I have is to continue funding our early childhood literacy fund that we established 2 years ago, making sure that's in the appropriations budget. I'm also in conversation with some folks for some bills perhaps pertaining to veterans, maybe some higher ed initiatives as well, but in terms of key priorities, we need to make sure that the affordability of the state is something we really focus on, and our small businesses and entrepreneurs in the state also can be a part of the climate work we're doing, climate tech, so I'm interested in bringing that to the Environment Committee. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Nice to see folks out tonight on this chill evening. My name is Bob Duff. I represent Norwalk and about half of Darien in the state Senate, and have been elected again as the Senate Majority Leader. I do not serve on policy committees, so I chair the Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Legislative Management Committee, which kind of is a committee that just oversees functions at the state capitol. Executive and Legislative Nominations Committee is kind of interesting because a lot of the governor's appointees, whether they're for commissionerships or deputy commissionerships, whether it's for folks who are on the Commuter Rail Council or on the Dairy Board, it's a lot of different agencies and boards that we have in the state of Connecticut, and it's really interesting to see how all those things function, and that gives us a kind of a good view on the Legislative Nominations Committee. So that's interesting. Before I was Majority Leader, I served as Chair of the Housing Committee, I served Chair of the Banking Committee, I served Chair of the Energy Technology Committee. I was also a member of the Appropriations Committee, and I think I chaired 1 or 2 subcommittees. So you get a lot of experience over time, and that comes into play and is very helpful. I would say for priorities for me, one is obviously our state budget. We cannot leave before we adjourn in June without a biennial state budget. It's a 2-year state budget. Housing, as Representative Robbs talked about, is an extremely important issue. It's holding our economy back by not having more housing across the state of Connecticut. We have to also continue to work on energy issues. We were very aggressive back in 2020 with the SB7, which was the Take Our Grid Back Act, and it took many years of implementation, because of the regulatory process. And then healthcare, environment, all those other issues are obviously extremely important too, and we're watching those consumer protection, technology issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nathan.
Thank you, it's great to see everybody. Happy New Year. I'm Lucy Dathan. I represent Silvermine, West Norwalk, part of Rowayton, Brookside, and a teeny little bit right around the edge of Cranberry, right around Main Avenue. So if that's where you live, then I'm your rep. I have left at the back of the room, if we don't get to your issue, all of the major issues that we see coming forth of our legislature. This is what we did last year as a legislature, so you can get in touch with me on here if you have any questions. I sit on 3 committees. I'm on a new committee called the Government Oversight. I'm going to be co-chair of that committee. We are looking at the accountability of our audits and making sure that we are following up with the auditor recommendations on a little bit more timely basis. I also sit on Human Services and Appropriations, and as I said, I'm a CPA by trade and been in finance my whole career, so those 3 committees work really well together because Human Services is about 1/3 of our state budget. My focus is really on Medicaid funding, healthcare cost affordability, energy cost. Even though I don't sit on that committee, I'm delighted that my colleague is going to be in that committee. Our state budget, regulations, and helping the IDD population, and environmental issues.
Okay, thank you. All right, great. Thank you for the intro. Let's go. First question is a public health question. I'm going to start with Ms. Mara for this question. You were on that committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How do you plan as a legislator in general to deal with some of the disruptions that may occur with the Affordable Care Act under the new federal administration? You have a minute and a half.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
that question. I thought we were going to be dealing with state issues and
Well-
not federal issues. I think I'd like to wait and see what these disruptions are going to be before we jump to conclusions.
Very good answer. Thank you for that. Anybody else would like to weigh in on that one?
I might just weigh in a little
Okay.
bit. One of the things that we do in Human Services is for folks that don't actually receive Medicaid benefits because they make a little bit too much money, we do look at subsidies across the exchange. Ideally, I mean, nobody can read a crystal ball. We don't know what's in store for us, but that is something that we are committed to as a legislature so that no one does fall through the cracks. But really, we need to kind of get to some of the key drivers that are making healthcare so expensive in our state. We talk a lot about prescription drugs. There's currently a task force going on in the Senate right now, talking about PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, and prescription drugs are just astronomical, and they are growing up all the time. Today we had a call with the Office of Healthcare Strategy run by Dr. Deidre Gifford. And we talked about some of the different things that are going to be happening around healthcare and trying to make healthcare more affordable for our state residents.
Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I go back?
You absolutely go ahead. Sorry about that. Go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. You caught me by surprise with the federal question, but I do want to say that I have been co-chairing this prescription drug task force. I did mention it a little bit at the beginning. I think one of the things that we look at when we're moving forward, when we talk about healthcare, when we talk about access to prescription drugs, we know that our drugs are expensive. My concern, and I think many people should be concerned, is where we're going from here. And one of the things that we see when we've got these pharmacy benefit managers who are the middlemen between the insurance companies and the manufacturers are what role they are playing. It used to be you would go to your doctor or your pharmacist and the best medication would be picked for you. And you could go to your pharmacist, you could figure out which lower medication costs you would want. Now the PBMs have gotten into the mix of this. And sometimes it's beneficial for them to actually give the higher cost drug because they take a percentage dealing with the cost of the drug. This is something that not everybody is aware of, and we are digging into the issues. This is very complex. We are really only hitting the surface, and there's very little, well, I shouldn't say there's very little. There's not, we can't do a whole lot because we have to involve the federal government as well. So we hope that we will be able to inch a little bit, and I hope that along the way, we're gonna see some more transparency in where your health costs are going, so that you understand when you are paying for your prescription, what the cost really is to that and where that money is going.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Dunn.
Did you want to say something?
No, just a quick little, I know we did a tour recently, going out to the Marvin, all the nursing homes and elderly homes, and Sean Scanlon, our comptroller, has an actual program. I'm not too familiar with what it's called, but it's about Array X, and you can actually type in your zip code and the form of prescription of drugs that you're looking for, and it will actually give you like all the prices at this kind of rate, whatever the case may be. So you can actually look into that as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you. I just want to mention that, healthcare, I mean, I appreciate that question, but healthcare in general is such a game of whack-a-mole. And we have worked so hard over a number of years to try and fix certain things, only to see new problems persist. It's almost like with energy as well. Same kind of a thing where we think we fix one or two or three things. So, for example, there were times where you would, if the generic drug was cheaper, sometimes the pharmacy, but your copay was higher, the pharmacy would charge you more because they could, and then we had to eliminate that. And same with like hospital visits or pricing or things like that. There's just so many different things out there that are, and I'll give you an example right now where there's really no winners here. There's only people who are caught in the middle, and that is with Stanford Hospital right now with Anthem Insurance. There's people who don't have, or really caught in the middle between Stanford Hospital and Anthem not being able to agree on a contract. I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong. All I know is that there's a bunch of consumers right now who are panicking because they're not so sure if they go there, if their insurance is going to be covered or not. And thankfully, we have a state law that says if you have a state plan, there's an extra 60 days. We passed that in 2023. So the state is taking action on a lot of these things, but we are hamstrung a little bit by the federal government. But this is a big issue. I wish, in many ways, the federal government would get more active on these kind of things, on these consumer protection issues. But for us in the state, we'll continue to take action as we can. But it really is a game of whack-a-mole because they'll always try and find ways in which to get around some of the things that we're trying to do to help consumers.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to another question. I'm going to start with this, another great topic we all love so much, housing. I'm going to give this one to Mr. Roberts first. What legislation is being considered this year to address the housing shortage, and what are your thoughts on the role of Work, Live, Ride to address this? You have a minute and a half.
Like I said, so for us this year, so this session, so, like I said, we started yesterday, but we are definitely discussing a lot of Work, Live, Ride. We pushed that legislation, but for me, I think the affordability aspect of it is very much true. We know that housing is very important, but if we're not putting forth housing for affordability for anybody in general, they will be moved out of the area. So one big housing situation we do have is Just Cause, which is a big thing this session. And that's just more so in regards to, protecting tenants' rights within the state of Connecticut. That's a lot when it comes to just, discussing, the displacement of and housing security, and how it allows residents to establish their roots where they want to live at. Because in the state of Connecticut, renters, you could just be kicked out for living where you live. And landlords have, the right to force them out their homes in short notice as well. So that's a big thing for us that we want to attack this session. When it comes to, just the affordability aspect, $3,100, $2,900 for a studio is not affordable for people. It's killing, it's really killing us. And when you say affordable, you can't tell me that you got 10 units in a 38 unit building and you say to me, okay, yeah, $2,700 is affordable. It's not. And then that aspect gets pushed back onto me as well. Tomorrow I have a big press conference on homelessness. Majority of the homelessness is in Fairfield County. We have kids sleeping in cars. A lot of people don't attack that issue, so we have to attack that issue now. So we gotta talk about homelessness, because if I don't have shelter, that means I'm not gonna have food. If I don't have food, that means I'm not gonna be able to focus. That means I'm not gonna be able to provide for my family. Majority of us, you know, with our salaries and what we make, we spend 50% of that on our own housing. What's left? Another 50, 30%, we got school, we got clothes, so it's not affordable. So we're gonna push that envelope forward this session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Ms. Mara?
Yeah, sure, thank you. I think one of the things we need to think about when we look at housing, and I really applaud the governor for putting money aside, because I think one of the issues we have, and we saw when I've talked to builders, is financing of housing, and it's navigating the regulatory landscape. So I'm really pleased with how the governor has worked with this. He's put money aside to help with financing. They're getting their act together to help pave the way. I know this is an initiative. I know that you see a lot of housing going up here in Norwalk. Down here in Lower Fairfield County, we see a lot. There's 3 units that have been going up in Darien. We have several hundred there. In Stanford, there's a whole lot of housing. So I think we're seeing the work be done, but Rome is not built in a day. We do have to give it time. Some of the initiatives in Darien have taken up to 10 years because of a lot of the rules of the building codes that have happened along the way. So
Thank you.
I applaud the governor. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
There are caucus priority bills coming from each chamber, and I know that housing, I won't speak for the Senate, but I know that this is been a priority for both of our majority leaders. I have not speak for Bob, but he's right here. But for our majority leader, Jason Rojas, this is a deep expertise for him, but also passion. And I think that the fact that we're so lucky to have our vice chair sitting right here is really amazing for our city. And the fact that we're gonna have a priority bill coming out of the House on housing and homelessness is just a demonstration of how much of an issue this is. Like Kadeen said, people are using an obscene amount in some ways, parts of their income for their housing. And we've just seen statistics come out nationally that the biggest growing group, demographically speaking, of homeless folks are seniors and people with children. And that is a societal problem that we really obviously need to address in where we live. Childcare, I should say, is a big function of what I would like to also focus on, and early childhood education, obviously with the early literacy. But when we're thinking about the fact that these children may be living in a car, we have to treat the whole child, right, including whether or not they have heat and a safe roof over their head.
Okay, Mr. Duff?
Thank you. I mean, this should be a top issue really for everybody, and when I chaired the housing committee a long time ago, I remember reading a book, the first book I read on homelessness, and it was about New York and their homeless population. 40% of the homeless population in New York at the time were children. And I still remember that. It was still a very big wake-up call. So what Representative Johnson, Representative Roberts said is accurate and right. And and again, it's holding our economy back by not building more housing across the state. And every single community needs to be a part of the housing solution. When I was housing chair, we did a $100 million housing trust fund over 5 years, and everybody thought that was like the biggest thing since sliced bread. Now we spend about $500 million a year in housing, but we do have to make regulatory reform on the local level so that housing gets built faster, that shovels get into the ground, that it doesn't take so much time and effort and money before we get these projects moving. So that to me is really important. That's how we grow our economy, that's how we do it. And homelessness is a part of this whole strategy, which is why we have the Majority Leaders Roundtable on housing. We've done that for a number of years now, we've gotten a number of bills through, but homelessness is a solvable problem. We have almost solved it, we came very, very close. We've gone backwards. It's a case of funding, and it's a case of everybody continuing to work together within government and non-governmental organizations.
Can I say something?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dathan first, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you very much, and just wanted to echo what my colleagues have all said. One thing I hear within, I sit on the housing subcommittee, part of appropriations within DECD, and we hear a lot about people who are unable to find housing with their voucher system. And that is a huge problem all over Fairfield County, and we need to maybe cut some of the red tape so that those are easily able to be used more often. And also we want to ensure that our families with young children, we don't want to have to We want them, they've made roots in this community. We want to make sure that housing is not the reason that they have to leave our community. So that is something that we do talk about. Some of the things we have a little bit more ability to control if it's a state housing voucher rather than a Section 8 voucher, which is the federal housing voucher. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
I do want to be clear on this. I believe last session or session before, our senator worked on a really strong bill, a fair share bill, with our majority leader as well. And when he talked about the regulatory situations, we got to be honest. I'm blunt with everybody I talk to. Sometimes we want to work with local control, you know, but that bill was so simple for me. It was 169 towns and cities have to reach a threshold, certain threshold. But some towns and cities that surround us didn't want proper form of housing. So just understand, I'm blunt. So just imagine around us, some certain towns or cities around Norwalk did not want that access. They didn't want that. So we have to knock that door down. We have to be honest with one another. We can't talk about, oh, we don't have housing, it's $2,700 a month. We're not even allowing people to live in these cities or towns. So I do want you guys to be honest. We're working our butts up there. But we also want you to be honest with you guys to understand that we can create these bills and laws, but you still got 151 people in that room with us. And we still have to sway them for these actual bills as well. We represent the 6th largest city in the state of Connecticut, the fastest growing city. Why can't we afford housing for everybody? It's like really frustrating. I went to college in Virginia, I wanted to come back home. I came back home to provide for my family and give back. That should be every kid, your grandkids, your kids. Go to college and come back and provide for your families. Start your legacy here. That's the main goal of housing for me. I don't know
Okay,
what
thank you very much. Okay, next question, moving on. We're gonna start, this question will be for Ms. Johnson. Do you think Connecticut DEEP services Norwalk well? DEEP.
Okay, that's
DEEP.
the Department of Environmental Energy.
Exactly.
Okay, Energy Environmental Connection. All the acronyms in Hartford, it's like you have a cheat sheet. All right, does it serve Norwalk well? Okay, that seems like a bigger general question. I'm wondering if there's a specific thing that's happened to somebody in the audience that has prompted that, but I guess I'll speak to it more generally given the time we have. So, DEEP, as I understand it, putting on the council in Norwalk before I went up to Hartford and as a state rep, oftentimes would work with our health department, right, when there were perhaps remediation issues that we would need DEEP to come in. I've even had a constituent who's in a mixed zoning where there's paint fumes, right, in their yard, so DEEP has come down to try to ascertain if there's an issue with a violation of zoning there. So I think that when it's come to that aspect of DEEP, they have been responsive. We're doing a lot of work here with brownfields, with this amazing work we're doing with the brownfield remediation, with the funding we've been able to get under the leadership of Senator Duff. That's going to really change, I think, the game in terms of making sure that we use parking lots more effectively as housing. You know, walkable downtowns that people may not need a car, right? And I think that in that way, DEEP is going to be very, very important to make sure, and this goes back to Lucy's point, like, in many ways, we need to make sure that DEEP is a very good partner with the work we want to do. Maybe we need to, and this is a question for our Planning and Development Committee, can we cut the red tape and the bureaucracy about some of the permitting that we need? I know Manresa Island, we're going to need DEEP to be working with us really closely there to make sure that vision and dream happens, because I mean, the McCords were up at the State of the State yesterday, and the governor gave them a shout out. I mean, we know how game-changing that is for Norwalk, so we need DEEP to be really good partners with us.
Okay, Mr. Duff.
Oh, thanks. So I think, again, to kind of represent Johnson's point, if there's a specific issue, we probably should know about it, but I would say it's probably, they're in Norwalk in a lot of different capacities, and DEEP actually talks about Norwalk and from a standpoint of the resiliency work that the city has done in a very, very positive way. Actually, there was Senate Bill 11 last year, which was all about resiliency, and they modeled a lot of it after some of the stuff that Norwalk's been doing. So that's really good stuff. As was just said about Manresa, the Commissioner Dykes was meeting with McCord yesterday, once again. to talk about Manresa because there's a lot of permitting going on there. But, you know, for the sense that a lot of, you know, energy and environmental protection is a big agency, lots of different types of things to do. They have a big kind of a web of work, whether it's state parks or whether it's resiliency, whether it's permitting because of the walk bridge, whether it's, you know, whatever it is. There's a lot of different components there. And I would say generally they work their best. They actually have a new concierge program that tries to help communities, especially if things are on a timeline, try and move things along quicker, and not have it kind of buried in some sort of regulatory process that takes way too long and costs too much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dathan, anything else?
Thank you for the question. It's like everyone has said, and there's so many things that are going on within DEEP, but we've seen firsthand here in Norwalk how DEEP has been instrumental in helping us recover from the bridge fire back in May. DEEP was there within hours of the accident happening, ensuring that we didn't have toxins go into our water stream. They were there making sure that our wildlife and our coastal areas were safe. So they do a fantastic job. They're very responsive. I think the one issue that we've seen is we just don't have enough enforcement officers, and really that's really due to budget constraints. You know, when we look at different bills and putting things forward to the legislature, if there is an aspect where DEEP has to do enforcement, we may not be able to get that bill over the finish line because we just don't have the power, the human element to do the enforcement that needs to happen.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Roberts, anything on this?
They got it, they said, oh.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Mara, anything on this? We're all good. Okay, moving along. Next question. I think we'll start with Ms. Dathan on this question. A couple of questions about this. Can our state finally pass a medical aid in dying law to serve the needs of terminally ill residents?
I don't sit on public health and I don't sit in judiciary, but those are the two committees that would definitely see this bill. I have been a supporter of aid in dying. I'm a born and raised Catholic, and a lot of people are saying, hey, Catholics don't like it. Frankly, you know, this is based on my own personal experience, I saw my father die of cancer, and it was heart-wrenching. And if anybody has seen a loved one experience deep pain, that someone who is terminally ill has, it is heart-wrenching, and you want to do something. I do believe that we can have guardrails in place in order to ensure that we have the patient has seen a various number of medical doctors to make sure that the diagnosis is accurate. But we've seen many other states in the country actually pass this, and just a few weeks ago, Britain's parliament passed this, and that was kind of surprising. You know, a lot of folks are worried about sort of death panels and things, and they've talked about that. But when you have the appropriate guardrails in place and how things are acting appropriately, I would support this initiative. But I don't sit on either of those committees, so I will not be able to vote for it within committee.
Okay, we're gonna go down to Mr. Roberts on this. You do sit on the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, I just got there this year. I'll pass.
Okay, I
I'll
can,
let them, yeah.
well, the two of us,
Yeah.
are.
All right, you've got it. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Johnson, sure.
By the time it got to us in judiciary, it had already gone through a very lengthy public, as Lucy described, a very lengthy public hearing process in public health. And the leadership of particularly Kristen McCarthy-Vahey, I thought was amazing. Immense emotional testimony in that committee. And so that was referred to judiciary because, of course, anything at the state level that involves a criminal aspect of, like, perhaps a fine or something else, then automatically gets referred. We could not pass it out of judiciary. So there are concerns, and it's on both sides of the aisle. It's not like it's just a partisan, it doesn't go right down a partisan line, for example. But I say this to say that there's more work to do about telling stories, I think. And that's what came through, was like I can say that I had, I don't know if they were a constituent, but there's West Porters I've met who moved to Vermont, because they had terminal cancer and they wanted to be able to make sure that they had some control over their end of life circumstances, and it was absolutely within their control. I know I'm in time, I apologize, but I think that that's part of the work ahead, and I do not know if it is going to be raised as a committee bill this year. I do not know that. But Judiciary will be meeting soon, and the Judiciary typically raises bills as committee bills, and so we will be finding out, I think, quite soon, if that is something we'll be taking up in this long session.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Morrow?
Thank you. I serve on public health. I sat through the meetings.
That's right, I'm sorry.
It was a very long, very tough day. I also have seen 2 family members die. So I do understand this, and I'm a pharmacist. So I get this, I'm compassionate, I totally understand. When it came to the end to discuss, there are a lot of little issues around the edges, and one of the hang-ups that we had there at the end was, what if someone wasn't able to make the decision to die? And what if their next of kin or their loved one made the decision? And then what would then happen if they made the decision and then another loved one was upset about the decision? Where were the legalities there? So please understand that this is a very tricky discussion. It's very personal. It's heart-wrenching, and we are listening. We are trying to do the best that we can around this, but it's a very tough discussion, and if we have to hear this again, then this is going to be a very, it'll be another very long and sad day that we have to sit through.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Duff?
Yeah, thank you. And this issue's been around for a number of years, and as was said earlier, it's really not a partisan issue. It's an issue that crosses party, religion, I guess, philosophy, and it's actually one that I found people need to get comfortable with. They need to learn it. They need to understand it. As Representative Johnson said, you need to hear stories, because it is something where you have to really feel comfortable in making this kind of a decision. It's different than saying we're going to rename part of Route 7 for somebody, or we're gonna vote on a bill for Department of Social Services. This is a very personal type of a piece of legislation. The Speaker of the House, many years ago, Brendan Sharkey, I believe, introduced this bill as a speaker's bill, and even then, it didn't get through. So it's just one of those things. I think at one point it may, but it just takes time. There's a lot of turnover back in 2018 with legislators, so I think it's just a matter of getting more legislators comfortable and maybe answering some of those questions around the edges. I personally think it's a humane issue. I support the issue. I think I've heard the stories from people they talk about their parents and their end of life and the pain that literally physical pain that they were in. We wouldn't treat animals that way, and we don't, right? So we have to figure out a way, because it really is a matter of compassion, as I see it. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duff. Okay, the next question, I'll start with you, Mr. Duff. Will you support Connecticut highway tolls, given that Connecticut is one of only 2 states on the East Coast without tolls?
I don't see that bill coming up, so I don't see it. It's not happening, so.
Nice dodge.
Not happening.
Anybody else want to weigh in on tolls? Okay, next question, moving along. Okay, here's an interesting one. Mr. Duff, we'll start you with this one as well, okay? See how you do with this one. I feel like
Very efficient. Very efficient.
Okay, what is the likelihood of Connecticut passing legislation that would regulate AI?
Interesting, okay. Well, let's see, let's talk to my House colleagues here. So we have Senator James Maroney, who is the Senate Chair of the General Law Committee, who is, he partially blames me because I got him involved in the whole data privacy issue. And so now I got involved in the AI issue. And he's now considered one of the country's leading legislative people on the issue of AI. And we did pass the bill last year in the Senate, and I think it was 24-12. Unfortunately, it was a partisan bill. The House did not take it up because the governor had some concerns about it, and there was overall some concerns. Other states have not passed it. Since then, a number of other states have passed it. There is discrimination amongst AI, especially when it comes to healthcare, it comes to rentals, it comes to mortgages, and other means of data. So we have to figure out a way to get a bill across the finish line and have the governor's signature on artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not all bad. There's lots of good parts of artificial intelligence. The generative AI is the part that we have to really put our hands around and put the parameters around. Again, you have European countries that have data privacy laws. European Union, they have AI laws. They have better nutrition laws. We are a country that doesn't have those, so the states have to take care and tackle those issues. Unfortunately, and fortunately, at the same time. Fortunately for us, because it's exciting, we learn, but unfortunately, because our Congress should be passing these laws as well. So I think these are good issues. I hope that we can get past it. I will say that Representative Mara and I and Senator Roney are on the National Conference State Legislature's Cybersecurity Task Force, which now has AI and some other things as more things kind of come up, which is really exciting. We hear from national experts, and Senator Maroney is literally working with legislators from probably 25, 30 states on this.
Okay.
And
All right, Ms. Morrow, would you like to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, sure, no. Yes, we are both on the National Task Force for Data Privacy, Cybersecurity, and AI. Yeah, it's been, so I guess, I'm the person put up in the House to look at this, certainly on the Republican side. I've also been on the multi-state working group that Senator Maroney has been meeting with. We've been meeting every 2 weeks for, all through the summer. So I do, this is an issue. I want to say it's tough when you are a small state trying to do regulations that affect the country. And the governor said at his address, he said the EU has the most regulations and the least innovation. He wants to be a place that has innovations. And I think that's important when we look at AI. When we are a small state, if we start regulating just in Connecticut, then guess which businesses are not going to come to Connecticut? It really needs to be done on a broader scale, and that's one of the discussions that I had with Senator Maroney last time around, is whether we could do trigger laws to where if there were enough states in New England that took this on, that maybe then we could jump into it. But he has a whole, most of his bill that he's putting forward, I think, is going to be really great for Connecticut. It's looking at AI in government, AI in schools, making sure that there's a regulatory sandbox, that if someone comes into the state, that they know that these are the lawyers that are going to be dealing with AI, and these are the tools, and these are the way that you can look at implicit bias if you have AI in your and you're using it in your system. So everything is there and ready for them, but it's not quite regulated yet. And I think a lot of people that start these companies are really looking at ethical ways to do this. I think that we can help them along the way, and I look forward to working with the Senate and Senator Duff and Senator Maroney on this.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
These are the two obvious experts here. I'm just going to weigh in that I was a House co-sponsor of Senator Maroney's bill, fundamentally because the constituents who are high school students here in Norwalk, O'Brien McMahon and Norwalk High, really were lobbying many of us because they felt the deep fake provisions in the bill were absolutely necessary because of the things that they were experiencing in their daily life being immensely destructive and exploitative. And also, I think that to me, like Rep. Martin and Senator Duff said,
That's a good part of the bill.
exactly. Like, and I think we can't. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there, like Rep. Martin said, there's so much good in that bill, and I think that's a really good example of such that's an innovation we need to keep here, because it keeps us safe. So if we're talking yesterday with the governor about how we need to keep kids safe from social media and empower parents to do that, this is right, that syncs right up with it.
But that's the good thing about the multi-state process is that it's not a patchwork of 50 laws or even 25 laws or 20 laws. It's literally getting legislators from all states to agree on model legislation, which is really, really important, because otherwise it's people, lawyers come in and it's just they'll kill this or they'll kill that here or there or wherever, and it works. We've done that with data privacy and children's data privacy as well. Those things do work in the absence of congressional leadership.
Okay, Ms. Dathan or Mr. Roberts?
I was actually just going to make the point that my colleague Dominique made, because I heard from many young people, particularly young females, who had experienced cyberbullying as a result of doctored images, doctored conversations, and things like that. And we need to protect our youth, no matter who they are, female or male, because it does happen. Cyberbullying and bullying does happen regardless of gender, and we need to ensure that our young people are safe. We also need to make sure, and I know my young daughter is just applying to college now, and as part of her application process that says, have you used AI to help with your essays? And it is an interesting thing that it's just a declaration, but a lot of these universities, what I hear, do have AI analysis, so that they're able to give like a score to say what is the probability. So it is a protection as well for our young people.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Roberts, anything on this?
Just basically for me, I think, everybody basically said everything that they needed to say. For me, I get it from an educational standpoint. So we gotta protect the youth. So currently my job, I actually work at the #1 charter school in the state of Connecticut when it comes to bridging the gap, when it comes to a Blue Ribbon school. And it's the #1 charter school in the state. And about 70% of my 8th graders that go to private schools paid for when it comes to high school. This past year, it got to the point where they're doing their actual prep school essays and stuff. And I'm working with them, and they go in there and they do their essays. And I'm like, wait, this don't really sound like you. So, like, who is this? And you sit back, and God works in mysterious ways, because they'll sit down and say, okay, Mr. Roberts, yes, I used AI. But you also have to understand, when you get into that actual school like Masters, Brunswick, Fairfield, Pratt, you gotta take that test when you walk in that school. So I'm gonna know if you used it or not. So we gotta really protect our youth when it comes to that aspect as well.
Okay, thank you. This next question is, I'm gonna start with Ms. Mara on this. Energy and technology. Here we go. This is another hot topic, I would assume. What will you do to help with electricity rates and use of the public benefit? You get to go first.
Simple. Okay, thank you so much. I know, I'm sure every one of us, when we, over the summer, you got calls, like hundreds of calls, or the public benefit charge, I think, really shocked a lot of people. I was just, I am ranking on energy and technology now. What that means is I'm the minority party, so it's the minority party's chairperson in the House on energy and technology. So I've been in meetings all day today, and that was, obviously that's one of the discussions. This might be longer than a minute, I gotta be honest.
Okay.
To summarize all energy.
So a couple things. When you're looking at that public benefit, first of all, your energy bill just went up because it was a hot summer, right? So that was one of the things. The second issue is the public benefit. The only reason you know what the public benefit charge is, and you see the public benefit charge, is because there was a bill that was put through that divided it all out. Because that is what is lovely about transparency and looking at your bills. What I want to do with the pharmacy stuff as well. So that is important for you to see where your transmission, where your supply, and what public benefit is. And that public benefit did a couple things. One, it paid for our Millstone power, our nuclear energy. And our nuclear energy sometimes costs more than our natural gas. It sits at about 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour, exactly actually. And then our natural gas usually can be below. Sometimes, like during war periods, our natural gas may go up. And so that steady nuclear charge, you actually got a payback from it a couple of years ago. More recently, the natural gas went down, so we still have a very set amount of money that we pay for nuclear energy. We agree across the board, I believe, I don't mean to speak for anybody here, that nuclear energy is really important. It's about 30% of our energy across the state, right? So it's important for us to have, and it's clean. But sometimes it costs a little bit more. So what happens in that public benefit charge is that they have to charge extra for the nuclear energy charge. At that point, they had many months that they had not been collecting for extra. Now, part of the reason is because PURA and the utility companies are not syncing up. There's a little bit of disconnect there. And so one of the things I want to do moving forward is bring people together, because PURA didn't know how much the energy cost was going to be versus how much the nuclear charge was going to be, and so they weren't regularly charging for it before you hit that July. I think it's July when the rates went so high and they started collecting, and all of a sudden you all see a huge bill. Also in collection was anybody that was in arrears during COVID and didn't get their energy shut off. There was a small percentage that was collecting for that as well. So yeah, you all foot a big bill, and part of it is because our utilities and PURA are not working together. I think moving forward, we need to get people on the same page, and that's one of the things I'll try to do.
Okay, thank you very much for the explanation. That's very important. Okay, anybody else want to weigh in on this one? Nobody, really? Nobody? Anybody? Okay.
I'll go.
Go ahead. We have one more question after this, so
I
go
would
ahead.
say that Representative Mara, for her second day as ranking member of the Energy and Technology Committee, did an excellent job of explaining that very, very well. Because energy policy is complicated, and there's no easy solution to this. I mean, here's the thing: is that there's two different ways of reducing our costs. One is to use less, and energy not used is the cheapest energy that we have, right? There's no cost to it. The other is because we're at the tip end of the pipeline, is to build more capacity, and which means some people may not like it, but you will be bringing in more natural gas into the region, and if there's an analogy, it's almost like I-95 traffic in the morning going southbound. There's 3 lanes of traffic. You really need 5 lanes of traffic to keep the traffic moving. But we only have 3, so it's a bottleneck, and it costs more because it costs you more because you're sitting in traffic, costs your time, and it costs your gasoline. And so that's what costs more. Think of the same thing as like for natural gas, trying to come way up here, and it's in a pipeline, there's not enough of it, there's not enough capacity coming in, so it's constrained, so therefore it costs more. So that's why, one of the reasons why electricity costs more. On the public benefit charge, absolutely that was broken down from just 3 different categories to the public benefits as well. 77% of that cost is the Millstone nuclear deal. About $5 a month is the public benefit, and let's just be clear also that most of the charge for the rate turnoffs, for the write-offs, I guess, of Eversource for businesses, not residential. A lot of people think this is some welfare program for individuals. It's not. It's businesses that went out of business and never paid their electric bill. And that's most, because people, if they don't pay their electric bill, Eversource can go into collections for 1, and 2, if they move and try to put their electricity back on again, they can't get their electricity back on again until they pay that bill. Plus, we have programs for people to help with that as well. So that cost, unfortunately, PURE decided to do that in a compressed timeline rather than a longer timeline, which would have smoothed out the rates, I think, a little bit more. And that's part of the issue. So and Representative Morris is absolutely right. During the Ukraine war, we benefited from the fact that we had Millstone. Now, because natural gas rates are lower again, we're not benefiting. It's a true up of that cost. We did one thing very important last year in our legislation, is that we said if we re-up the Millstone agreement again, and we've always said this since 2017, but it had to be in the benefit of the ratepayers, and that's up to the regulatory people indeed to determine that, not legislators. And second is that what we did last year's legislative session was saying that if Millstone happens again, it has to be done on a regional basis, not just Connecticut. Connecticut for too long on a lot of these things has gone on its own, which raises costs. So thankfully, and I helped try to do this a couple years ago, which was to bring the regulatory bodies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Connecticut together for the first time ever to actually have a conversation about our rates with Eversource, because they had never done that before. And this is because of my experience on the Energy Technology Committee. So now they're talking. The environmental commissioners are talking finally. And we've actually received quite a bit of federal money through the Inflation Reduction Act, which hopefully stays and doesn't go away in the name of tax cuts for billionaires, but has brought hundreds of millions of dollars to for pipelines that will actually help bring more capacity in, like whether it's Hydro-Quebec, whether it ends up being wind power, better solar, for the connectivity on some of the lines. All those things are really important. It's not a tomorrow fix, but there are plans and better ways in which to bring down costs over the long term. But we've got to figure out this, this Millstone thing cannot just be a Connecticut only thing, because we see how you have the ups and the downs, and the ups really, when the prices go up, it really hurts our consumers. And all of us want to do something about bringing down electricity costs.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it for questions. We're going to go into our closing statements. Okay, we're going to start with Ms. Dathan. We're going to go the opposite direction this time around.
It's a pleasure to have been able to speak with you this evening. I do look forward to talking to you, engaging with you over the next several months about what's important to you. But one of the things I like to say to my constituents, if something is super important to you, it is very important that you get involved and you write public testimony and you come to our hearings. Hopefully we can be still doing those over Zoom, which is phenomenal for all of us to be able to participate. But being able to take part is part of the democratic process, and I look forward to representing you. Please make sure that you pick up either one of my issues reports and my contact details here on my last year's legislative session. Do my legislative survey, tell me what's important to you, because I can't represent you unless I know what's important.
Thank you, and thanks again for being on here. I feel bad for poor Deb Duranzo here. We have not adhered to the time at all.
That's on me.
But hopefully it's been a good discussion for folks. And one thing I forgot to mention in my opening, and I know this again is for all of us here, but a really important part of our job is one is our constituent services, and two is bringing back funding for Norwalk. Over the last 2 years, we brought back over $300 million in funding for the city of Norwalk and Darien. That's a lot of money, and we'll continue to work hard at that as well, because that's helped keep property taxes down, it helps improve our city, helps move our city forward, and the town of Darien just got a $500,000 grant that I know Representative Mara worked on. They brought in money for school construction, so both communities, and I'm sure Westport and New Canaan have gotten some money as well. That's one, and then two, which I just totally went out of my head. Well, anyway, so it's just, I hope that people do stay in touch with us and then let us know really what's on their minds. It's a pleasure to represent all of you. Hopefully you've learned something here this evening, and that will continue towards the other. Oh, I know what it was. Last thing is that, and this is on me, is that I hope everybody in this audience really appreciates the fact that you have House members who have real leadership positions in their terms right now. You've got a vice chair, ranking member, deputy majority leader, a chair of a committee, and so Norwalk is really moving along here. And that doesn't mean we get everything we want. That doesn't mean we can wave a magic wand. But it means that the people who you've elected have done not only a good job in their districts to get reelected, but they have shown leadership in their own caucuses to have real responsibility. So I hope that people appreciate that and that they value that as well as to how we are all working hard on to benefit the people in this community.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
I am so grateful to be here with this group, because I'll tell you, I will just echo what Lucy said. Like, please, my card is on the table. Please get in touch with us. We need to hear from you to be effective. And that's literally fundamentally our job, but we also need to hear from you if you need us, right? We are your representatives who can help you with state agencies and navigating that, whether it's home heating assistance or anything happening in your life, we're here for you, and that's a big part of our job. I think Senator Duff took me in a direction I wasn't anticipating to go, because I think I can tell you how lucky it is that we can represent this community in a way where there's a lot of teamwork. We're able to do things here in Hartford at home for us in a way that I think is just steadily, we're going to see perhaps a radical shift. We're such divisive times already, right? And we don't know what's gonna happen with the new federal administration, but I can tell you that we are, no matter what, we wanna take care of our families, our children, and make sure that your voice is heard here. So I know that there's a lot of anxiety right now about kind of what may or may not happen. We don't, I'm using the term proactive reactivity, right? Because we just don't know, right? So, but we're preparing to make sure that people are not left behind. I know that that work needs to be done the way we do it. And if you heard the the Speaker of the House in the House yesterday talked about how we don't, we kind of defy a convention that seems to be happening in other state houses, right? Where we actually can do some work together. There are so many issues that we need to work on that shouldn't be partisan, right? At the end of the day. And I think that this is not how I intended to go, but I felt very compelled to say that I think that we can do both things, right? And we'll bring that home to you to make sure that you know you're represented, your voice is heard. So no matter what it is, good, bad, and other, we want to hear from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nara.
Thank you so much. Actually, that was how I intended to go as well.
I stole your thunder, I'm sorry.
That's okay, no. I hope that what you have seen here tonight echoes what we see in the General Assembly, certainly on the House floor when the Republican leader nominated the Democrat Speaker of the House and was seconded by the Democrat leader. We have a very good rapport across the aisle, and I actually really, even though I'm Republican, I really enjoy working with my colleagues up here, and I really enjoy representing Norwalk. I do live in Darien, but I am able to see two different areas very clearly, and I think that makes me a better legislator to understand different areas. I almost stopped things at the beginning when the comments were said, we don't want to be feisty tonight or things to get out of hand, because that's just not what I see here. Every time I come here with these legislators, I'm welcomed and I'm brought up front and I'm respected, and I do the same to them. And we disagree. There are definitely things that we disagree on, and that will continue to happen. And that's how we should move forward. We should move forward with a dialogue of understanding and listening, and that's how I plan to legislate. Thank you all so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
I just go in a different direction. So thank you for everybody coming tonight. I'll do it like this for you guys that's in the audience if you don't know. $26.4 million HVAC grant from the state of Connecticut. Your local elementary schools, middle schools, we did that. New high schools, 80% reimbursement rates. New schools, new elementary schools, new South Norwalk schools, so kids are being bused across the town, waking up early, going to school tired, so they can walk to the bottom of the hill. We did that. I'm talking about facts that we actually bring back from the capital for our constituents. That's dear to me, and it should be dear to you as well. When we're talking about homelessness and fixing that, we're doing it now. So I just want you guys, you know, to know that you have a wonderful group up here that's fighting for you guys at the Capitol. And I'll be honest with you, we're the ones running around that room trying to get this money. 100% honest. And I'm so excited to work with this wonderful delegation. We didn't talk too much about education, but we'll get into that, I'm pretty sure, so definitely send those emails out. There's parents that are upset about the 4 to 5 year old start date. We talk about that. I can't tell a parent she needs to spend $30,000 more on childcare and tell her son is not ready or daughter is not ready for school. We're doing a lot of things on a regular basis, so we do want you guys to understand that. But anything that you guys need, please reach out to me, reach out to the delegation. But I do want the facts to be proven tonight, because it's a lot of talk sometimes. Oh, what are you guys doing up there? The facts are here. The facts are in the city. Just drive around and see it. We did that. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and now we will join each other in singing Kumbaya. Since clearly we do not have any issues here in our Norwalk delegation. A very collegial evening. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. And as they all mentioned, and I'll mention it again, democracy is not a spectator sport. Please reach out. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.